What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. It is December 11th, which means UFC 256 is tomorrow. And today we're joined by Bob Voss of the MMA for Money show, here to break down the best bets UFC 256. Gentlemen, how are you guys?
Doing good.
Yeah, I'm doing well as well. I was just saying I'm about to get out of town, so I'm pretty pumped.
Yeah, going to a cabin in the woods or something, right?
That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, man. Hopefully there's no COVID out there, right?
Exactly.
So while I have you guys here really quick, before we talk about winning everybody some money, I want to talk about a couple quick events that happened this week. So there's a lot of stuff out of left field going on. First, let's talk about Yoel Romero. A couple days ago, the news broke that he had parted ways with the UFC. Again, kind of came out of left field. How shocked were you guys to hear this news?
I was pretty surprised. I don't know about you guys. Like, I guess it kind of makes sense. Like, every once in a while, the UFC drops guys like this that are, like, in the top 5 of their division, but not really. Maybe they don't see like they're making money from them. Like, Corey Anderson is a guy that comes to mind as well. Right. But I don't know. I didn't expect Yoel Romero, because Corey Anderson, right, is Corey Anderson. Yoel Romero, right. Soldier of God. Everybody fucking loves this guy. So I don't know if he's asking too much or what the deal was, but I was pretty surprised.
Well, he was locked into a contract. I think they said he had 3 fights left. One thing I was confused about is this kind of like, for me, is reminiscent of when they got rid of like Yushin Okami and John Fitch. But I mean, that kind of made sense because they were, not to disparage them, they were a bit on the boring side. Whereas other than like his very last performance, Yoel Romero is utterly exciting. So I don't really know, unless that big money from that supplement lawsuit finally came through and he just said screw everybody. I don't really know what he's doing.
Yeah, I was surprised too. I mean, Yoel's a freak in nature, 44 years old, looking like that. I mean, you could argue that he won, 1 or 2 of the Whitaker fights. I thought he won the Costa fight. I mean, the guy is dynamite everywhere. So that brings up the next question. What do you guys think the market for a 44-year-old Yoel Romero is at this point?
Well, dude, didn't PFL and Bellator both say that they're not interested? Which I think
take that with a grain of salt, though.
That's true.
At this point,
That's true. I mean,
especially with Bellator.
I assumed like when he was released, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, oh, this is a perfect Bellator signee.
Absolutely.
So I don't know, maybe Scott Coker is just playing hardball, like to say, oh, we're not interested, to bring down his price, but he seems like the perfect Bellator signee. I also saw Vitor Belfort in one said he'd be open to a fight with Yoel, which take all the drugs, do whatever you got to do.
Yeah.
I would love that.
Oh, absolutely. Would be all for that one. And I know I've since heard, I think it was Ariel who said that maybe not Bellator, but some of the bigger organizations have somewhat changed their mind a little bit. I don't know if those offers are actually out there or not. But I mean, you think of someone like Yoel, especially in a situation like Bellator, I mean, you could see him challenging for middleweight, light heavyweight, really wherever he wants to go. And especially with them having Rumble now and everything like that, they have just so many marquee names between middleweight. Actually, pretty much start at like welterweight going all the way up. I mean, it's pretty crazy how stacked they're getting. But yeah, I'm just like, especially PFL, I would think that would be like the guy they want. Especially, I mean, cool million to knock out a bunch of randoms sounds perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wonder how deep PFL's pockets are going to be going into 2021 with basically canceling all of 2020, aside from Kayla Harrison, who's taken a couple fights and beating up a couple unfortunate ladies along the way. You did mention Rumble Johnson. News came out the other day, again, kind of out of left field, that Rumble Johnson is returning. We expected that, right? But he's not returning to the UFC. He's going to be going to Bellator. And if you look at that Bellator 205 division, adding Rumble to it, man, that's an exciting division. You got Corey Anderson, Vadim Nemkov, I think 80-year-old Leona Machida is still around there. And now you inject Rumble into it. I love this, honestly.
It's a big move. I'm pretty pumped. I mean, I assume most fans still kind of have that. I know we're hardcore fans, so we're excited about Anthony Johnson coming back, but I still assume there's a pretty big swath of current fans that remember just how freaking devastating that guy was. So another kind of surprise, maybe his contract was not to the UFC's liking and that's why they released him, because I believe he was also still technically under contract with the UFC. That was just as surprising in my mind as Yoel Romero, because it's like, why would the UFC not want a guy like Anthony Johnson back in their light heavyweight division, which needs some more talent, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, you could argue that since John Jones moving up to heavyweight and DC is retired, with Rumble going over, and especially if they sign Yoel and he fights at 205, Bellator's 205 division is arguably better than the UFC's at this point, especially since Rumble has destroyed pretty much every other top light heavyweight they had at some point, because pretty much all those guys are still sticking around. I mean, I know when he was in World Series of Fighting before he came over back to the UFC, those first few fights at least, his contract, he was making about $500,000 flat, no bonus for that, at least that contract. So if he's making that and they're trying to make some room money wise, I guess it makes sense. Plus he has a cannabis business, and then I also believe a pit bull business. I don't know. He seems like the guy, and I've seen enough advertising for that maybe he'll have the opportunity to advertise that at Bellator, and he can't do that within the UFC. So not sure.
That's what I was thinking as well. He seems like a bit of an entrepreneur type.
And and his yoga mat throwing side business that he could just clear him out right for you at any gym.
I mean, he doesn't even have to seek out sponsors, right? His shorts can be littered with his own businesses.
Exactly.
One more little tidbit. I don't know. I guess I'll stay away from making a joke about it, but Yair Rodriguez has been suspended for, I believe, 6 months because he dodged, or I guess I don't want to say dodged, but he missed 3 USADA check-ins or whatever it is. It's kind of a shame, right? I mean, Yair was such a promising young prospect, and I think he still is. He's given us so many good moments, but, we had the brief release from the UFC, didn't want to fight Zabit, and now he's hiding under octagons with John Jones. Had to make the joke. I don't know, man. I'm disappointed with it, but I mean, I guess he's still young enough to right the ship. But again, it's a weird blip along the road.
I will say, man, kind of related to what we're talking about with Yoel being released and Dana White saying we're going to release 60 guys. Yeah. I would feel, if I were Yair Rodriguez, I'd think I got a target on my back, just because of his inactivity and, like you mentioned, like that brief release when he was. Like they couldn't come to terms with matchmaking. He seems to be not the most agreeable UFC employee. So, and you better believe with his style, Bellator, PFL, basically any other promotion is going to be dying to have him in their promotion.
Well, one hard part for him, I think I said this at one point. I can't remember where I said it. That I feel terrible because I feel like he's going to be one of those big MMA what ifs because he had so many. Yeah. So many tools and between like borderline same thing with Zabit with how limiting he's fighting right now. It's like you have these guys that seem to be on the cusp of being something truly great and they won't do it. And like someone like a Yair in that middle ground before he's going to prove himself, like if he would get cut, he could slide in for like a year or two just making bank at like Combate Americas and then become a bigger star there and then transition into Bellator, PFL, anywhere. And just I could really see him in like a PFL tournament. I mean, obviously he would have to be way more active than he's been in ever. But he's got a good shot there.
Oh, dude, I'm glad you mentioned Combate because Combate Americas, I think, has expressed interest, or Campbell McLaren, somebody has expressed interest in Yoel. And I actually think, I know they're talking about like a Tito Ortiz fight, whatever. Roll your eyes all you want at that.
I don't care. I want that to happen so bad.
Well, I think Yoel at Combate Americas is a perfect fit. He's Latin, he's super exciting, and he like leans into the Latin personality big time with the dancing, all that shit. I think he is a perfect fit if Combate can afford him. And I think they can. I mean, they got big television deals.
Well, they're saving money everywhere else because I mean, usually their low tier guys are making what regional guys are making on the undercard. So it's like they save up big for the big ones, and he would be one of them, and he drawed plenty of eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yoel Romero, Tito Ortiz, 2021. I guess sign me up, right?
He's gonna sit down, that city councilman.
Jesus. All right, guys, let's move on to the meat and potatoes of the show. We're here to talk money. We're here to win the fans some money, and hopefully all 3 of us some money, right? UFC 256. Let's start at the top. Deiveson Figueiredo and Brandon Moreno are running it back. They're saving the show. They both fought last month. They both made weight today. The lines at mybookie.ag have Deiveson Figueiredo at -320. The comeback on Brandon Moreno is +260. Before even looking at these odds, I think these are a little bit steep. I thought they would give Moreno a little bit more credit. Are you surprised that Moreno is +260, or do you think that's fair?
I think it's a little bit steep, but I just think that with how quickly I think a lot of people had a belief that Alex Perez was going to be able to do something or at least show a little bit more, and the fact that it seemed, I mean, he was doing pretty well up until the point that he got choked out. But I think people put so much in Alex Perez, the fact that he got dispatched so early. I think a lot of people, like including myself, like I gave Alex Perez a better shot than I do Moreno personally. So the fact that he got dispatched so fast, you have so many people discounting Moreno, which I don't think is fair. Although obviously there's tons of questions about this fight, given the fact that like they both fought 21 days ago, and that turnaround with that weight cut, especially for like Figueiredo, who's just a gigantic flyweight. I don't know how that's going to show in the fight. Really, it's kind of unprecedented.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Bob. Like, it's hard for me to find value here, especially because we saw so little of Figueiredo in his last fight, and he was just utterly, basically dominant. I mean, what did he defend a takedown and then get a submission essentially? Like
Wild exchange.
So it's hard to like draw much from that other than, oh, we know he can like finish really athletic guys really quickly. And Moreno is, I think, way less athletic than Alex Perez.
So a couple of the props that I was looking at, the over under is set at 2.5 rounds. The under is minus 125. The over minus 105. And one prop I actually kind of like, Brandon Moreno by submission is plus 900. Moreno has a great ground game, and if they get into some sort of wild scramble at plus 900, I would not be totally shocked to see Brandon Moreno pull out some sort of sub. And even on the vice versa, if Figueiredo pulled out some crazy sub, I wouldn't be all that surprised either.
No, I completely agree there. Like Moreno, I love him in a scramble. Really, my main reason for staying away from this fight in general is, like I said, the weight cut. And then one thing that Moreno does for sure that I think the counter for it for Figueiredo will be there all day is he's willing to jump in the fray so much. He throws like a, trying to find the best way to describe this, like a newly minted alpha male prospect where he leans forward with his face and throws that looping right, and then he's right there for an uppercut right up the middle, and that's something that Figueiredo's great at. So, but definitely if it gets a little bit squirrely, especially into like that second and third round, and he's able to take that kind of damage, like once those scrambles start happening, all bets are off. So that's one of the exciting things about Figueiredo is like he's willing to go for finishes, but that also puts him in danger as well. So it's going to be exciting title reign while it lasts.
Yeah. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Bob, but this feels like a fight that you should kind of basically stay away at. Keep your money away from it. Just like enjoy it for free, right? It's going to be be a barn burner, I think. It's going to be a really fun fight, but there's just so much variance that it's not worth it putting money on anything.
Well, I completely agree with that. And also, like, one thing we've started doing on our show is we kind of have a standing rule now that we like basically don't bet the main event, because if it goes bad, that's the end of your night. And then just the rest of your night, you just are feeling terrible. Whereas like this is just an utterly fantastic fight to just enjoy. So we kind of, even if you have a bad night earlier on, if there's a great main event, that can kind of smooth over some of the rough edges.
Yeah, that's a good rule of thumb. I think I gotta follow that a little bit more. The co-main event, man, has a lot to like. Charles Oliveira taking on Tony Ferguson. Both these guys again made weight too. It seems like we're gonna get this fight. You never know with the Tony Ferguson fight, right? A lot of crazy things have happened in his career, but the lines are Tony Ferguson minus 165. The comeback on Charles Oliveira plus 135. What do you like about these odds?
I like Dome Bronx as an underdog here, mainly because he's fast in the first round. Ferguson is slow in the first round, as always. He gets dropped. Like he gave an entire career to Lando Venata because he got knocked down in the first round. And one thing that has me leaning even more so, well, two keys for Dome Bronx here is it's a 3-round fight. That's huge. If it was a 5-round fight, I would completely stay away from it, or I would go with Ferguson. But it's a 3-round fight, so you don't have to worry about the add up of volume from Ferguson. And then the fact that with Ferguson getting dropped in the first a lot and taking a good amount of damage, and De Bronx has really worked on his straight punches, so he could possibly get it there, is if Ferguson gets rocked or he goes to the ground at all, De Bronx is going to lock on a sub. He's not going to try to go for the damage. He's not going to try to like go for broke there. It's like he's just going to latch on a sub. And there's very few people that are as prolific and amazing a finisher in the scramble as Do Bronx is. So really him at dog odds, especially with, I don't want to 100% give all the credence to the sheer amount of damage that he took against Ferguson against Justin Gaethje last time out, but I mean his entire career has kind of been that. It's like he kind of takes one to give one for the most part, but dude has a granite chin. But at some point he's going to be, I think he turns 37 in February, I think, if I have that right. And this just seems like Durbranx's time. So him at dog odds on the come up in a 3-round fight, I like him big here. That's actually one of the bets that I have for this fight card that I gave out on our show. I love him in this spot.
Let me ask you this, I haven't listened to your show this week yet, so because I wanted to come in here fresh. Is there any value on Oliveira by submission, or should you, because I'm looking like that ranges anywhere from like plus 235 to plus 350 even. Is that even worth betting that, or should you just bet Oliveira straight up?
Actually, one odds I want to quick check for you, because the hard part is if he's going to get that sub, it's very likely going to happen in the first round when they're both fresh in a state where Ferguson gets rocked. So Oliveira round 1 is plus 425. Because I do think if Oliveira doesn't get that finish within the first round, the likelihood it's going to go to decision is much higher. And that's another reason why I still like Oliveira, because I think he has a solid chance of winning the first 2 rounds, even if he doesn't get the finish. Whereas I know preemptively say everyone's going to start talking about Oliveira and his quitting. He hasn't done that in over 4 years. And if he was going to quit, he was going to quit in his life. If you rewatch the Kevin Lee fight, he got clocked a bunch of times, like solid. Old Oliveira would have crumpled. He did not. And Kevin Lee doesn't hit soft. So if you're going to think of him by sub, that would more than likely happen in the first round. So if you want bigger odds, you got that plus 425. And yeah, sub is a possibility, but with the dog odds on Oliveira, it might as well just go with it straight, because I think there's a decent likelihood it can go to decision with him winning the first 2.
The fight going to decision is plus 150. I kind of like that as well.
I do too, because obviously I lean Oliveira, but I do think that he's going to be able to last the full 3 against Ferguson. So if you're leaning Ferguson but you're not sure, definitely goes to decision. Would probably be a better bet than playing Ferguson at the minus 170.
So if we look at the rest of the main card, interesting one that just got bumped up to the main card. Mackenzie Dern taking on Virna Jandiroba. Dern is minus 190. Jandiroba is plus 155. These seem kind of far apart from me as well. I thought Jandiroba would be a little bit closer. She's got a great ground game. I think this is a pretty damn dangerous fight for Mackenzie Dern. No,
I'm with you 100%. And like this would be shocking to most people listening to this. I'm gonna bet Jandiroba here. I mean, I'm sorry, these odds are 100% based off name value, in my opinion. If you have good enough takedown defense, okay, I understand that. I think from what I looked at, Mackenzie Dern is obviously she's working on her striking. She's at the Ruka fight camp right now with Perillo, but she's still in that middle ground. I talked about this on our show a little bit. It's a similar thing happened to Damian Maia. Like whatever happens to heavy grappling people, they have a transition in their striking. It's like they start to learn how to striking. Then they're a kickboxer who doesn't know defense. And then they don't realize they need to use the striking to get into the clinch, whereas she seems to be falling in love with her hands a little bit, and I still don't think it's there. So I actually really like Jandiroba here, and I'm going to bet her because I don't think that Dern can get it to the ground, and I think on the feet, Jandiroba's better.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that. I 100% think these odds are flipped, to be honest. Like when I was looking at them, I was blown away to see Dern as a favorite, much less minus 190. I think it has all to do with name value. Jandiroba, I mean, I saw her in Invicta. She is also a jiu-jitsu black belt, certainly not as accomplished and probably not as straight, dangerous on the ground as Mackenzie Dern. But I do think Jandiroba has some of the best top game and guard passing in all of MMA, not just women's MMA, straight up all of MMA. I think she can stay out of trouble on the mat. And yeah, on the feet, Dern is athletic and fearless to her own fault, I think. Yeah. So yeah, I was blown away by these odds.
Well, and the last time that Dern fought someone with a semblance of a ground game was Amanda Ribas, and she lost that fight. So it's like anyone that can defend and has decent takedown defense, because Mackenzie Dern still doesn't have much of a wrestling game to speak of, and honestly, her takedowns in general aren't that good, especially at like the mid-tier to higher level of women's MMA in this division.
Yeah, I think she's going to have a hard time, and I also love these odds at plus 155, anywhere around there. Do you have any sort of read on the Kevin Holland-Jacare fight, or is that one just to stay away from?
I actually do. I'm mad because it seems like everyone's starting to agree with me. I really like Jacare Souza here, mainly because they're in the smaller cage because they're back in Vegas. I'm sorry, I just see Souza pushing him up against the fence. He's going to be the bigger guy and at some point be able to get it to the ground. And Holland does not have the best ground game. He's a guy where being in quarantine, fighting multiple times, he has that recency bias of everyone like, hey, I just saw him win. This is awesome. And he's about to fight for the 5th time in the year, and that's awesome. But there's a reason people don't fight 5 times in a year. Like I'm scratching my brain to think anyone that tried to go for 5 fights in a year, or even five fights in like 13 months, and won the 5th one. It's like this is the story of like Cowboy Cerrone's career, where like he fights 4 times in a year, loses the 5th, fights 4 times in a year, loses the 5th. This is by far the best guy he's going to be fighting in recent memory, and I'm sorry, like it was not that long ago that Jacare Souza went to a split decision with the now light heavyweight champion. And if you would account the first 3 rounds of that fight, he won that fight. And it was pinning up the bigger man at that point against the cage for long periods of time. So I really like Souza here, but I really notice people are starting to go that way because he was the underdog for a long time. And now at most books, he's like a slight favorite, but I still like him big here. And I would say by decision, but he did say that if Holland talked smack in the cage that he was going to break his arm. So
I will say listeners of our show will know that I'm a pretty big Kevin Holland fan, but I think part of what I like about him could be his undoing here is that he probably thinks he can grapple with Jacare Souza.
Oh, he 100% thinks he can.
Right? And that's part of what I love about him. The guy is like super confident and really exciting to watch, but I think he's going to maybe find himself underneath Jacare at some point and have a real oh shit moment in that fight.
Well, and one thing that I was holding off, and it's the reason that I missed dog odds, because I was really going to bet this fight, is I wanted to watch weigh-ins, because obviously this is his first time back down to middleweight at 41. He looked pretty phenomenal. He looked in great shape. He didn't look drained out at all, and it's definitely a good viewing. I mean, he's not going to be as fast as Holland. That is for sure going to be a thing, but that's why I like the fact that it's the smaller cage, and he'll be able to get him up against the fence at some point, because Jacare is still just like as strong as an ox.
Yeah. Souza by submission plus 225. Souza by decision plus 350. You got the call there. Take a look at them. Do you have any parlay advice for this card? Any parlays you like?
Well, not to be weird, I was actually going to bring up, it's not happening anymore, but I actually kind of liked Spivak on this one. But this is actually a fairly closely lined card for the most part, and we've already talked about trying to stay away from the main event. Everything else is lined pretty close. The trickiness about some of the bigger ones is the Chase Hooper, Peter Barrett one's a little odd just because both guys you don't know where they're at and crazy amounts. Like I would not trust a minus 330 Chase Hooper. Plenty of people got burned on that last time around. Tisha Torres is a gigantic minus 620 favorite. And actually one thing I do like on that one, because it's lined this way because she obviously this never happens, but Torres by inside the distance is plus 290, and this is probably the worst person she's fought ever in the UFC. So not to disparage Sam Page. I just learned her nickname not that long ago. Too much, but and I know she's been fighting for longer because she had a halfway long amateur career, but in terms of pro, she's only been pro for just under a year, or just over like a year and a half. So I like that, and that's really the only other, because then you get into JDS and Cyril Gane or Gane. Like I still don't know how to pronounce it. And
this is my dude here.
I know, but this is the hard part because JDS is probably still technically better everywhere.
Yeah.
But I don't know if he's getting knocked out by like the next level power heavyweights, or if he's just getting knocked out because of wear and tear. And Gane does have power, but I'm not sure if he has that kind of power. So it's hard for me to even like go towards that fight. Normally, like when you're looking for parlays, you're finding at least one in the minus 200 range, either multiple in the minus 200 range or one in the minus 200 range, and then one near even to balance it out. Because originally I was going to do Spivak and Jacare together and get plus money, but obviously the Spivak one fell out. So just trying to see if there's any other parlay ones on there. That's why, like all the other ones that are near minus 200, like Mackenzie Dern and stuff like that, I like the other side.
Yeah,
so.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Give me Gane by heel hook again, right?
Well, I was joking. I can't remember who I was talking to about that, but I love the brute force heavyweight submissions when they're just willing to be like, it's like, nope, going for a key lock. Why? Just because I can. Yep. Just the sheer raw power submissions. I love that. Like, I love the fact that he has like some of those on his record. Just like, I think Ngannou had one of those earlier on in the UFC. It's like, I'm just gonna grab your arm and just twist it.
Yeah,
it's a submission, I think. But
the Kimura from Neon Belly, which is just like the ultimate big man move.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, man. Appreciate it. Hope we win you guys some money this weekend. Again, check Bob Voss out. MMA for Money show. Really appreciate it. We'll talk to you all next week and enjoy the fights.